Hey, kia ora, Markie here with Gwendoline. It's a double bill today and we've got a beautiful sea view for you. And we're just having a kind of informal chat really about CoDA, Codependents Anonymous, and why that might be relevant and useful to people with retroactive jealousy.
Yeah.
And we thought we'd share this conversation with you, really, just talk it through live, well not live,
Yeah.
on air, not on air. I'm so old-fashioned, you see.
Yeah, no, but I like those phrases.
I say things like tune in and things like that, and they're all redundant.
Absolutely.
Nobody tunes into anything these days.
Exactly.
We're not on air.
Well, but then you do, you know. And guys, by the way, I've got a new radio show. If you're interested, obviously it's New Zealand based, but it's available online. It's with Access Radio. It's 104.4 FM for anyone in New Zealand. I believe that will be the correct frequency. But yeah, just go.
You can access it online.
Yes, exactly.
We'll put a link below. So look in the description box below, and you'll get a link. To that.
We'll put a link in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, go back to this conversation. I
CoDA,
think it's an interesting one.
So CoDA is a 12-step group. If you're interested, if you don't know about 12-step groups, then watch my videos on 12-step groups.
Yes,
check your channel, they're listed there. I think Mark demystifies 12-step recovery is the title. But essentially, in a nutshell, Alcoholics Anonymous was the first 12-step group, and then loads of others followed because they found that the program worked for lots of other, mainly addictions, but sometimes it broadens out a little bit beyond addictions. So you get Narcotics Anonymous and Overeaters Anonymous and all kinds of anonymouses. Nothing to do with the anonymous movement, people in Guy Fawkes masks, by the way. Completely different thing. So CoDA. Gwendoline, tell us about, what is CoDA? What does it stand for? Why is it called CoDA?
Well, CoDA is a shortened, abbreviated version of the full title, as far as I know, Codependents Anonymous. It's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? But Codependents Anonymous is for people who are wanting to have healthy relationships. So if you've ever found yourself in kind of dodgy friendships and, you know, or repeating patterns in your intimate relationships, you've had perhaps, you know, this also reaches back to your family of origin where, you know, your relationships in your family were pretty dicey or at best or worse, then that is definitely going to be a useful group for you to think about and consider. And if you're already in recovery or if you're considering therapy, it's a really good, either in addition to therapy or even instead of, to be quite honest, if you can find a really solid group. There are some pitfalls with these things, as is the case with anything that's created by us as humans. Can fall into, you know, the hands of people who don't have the best of intentions, but even if it's on a kind of less serious scale, it can be problematic if, for example, you have a CoDA group or a Codependents Anonymous group, 12-step group, that is full of people who are just starting out on their recovery journey. And so what you get often in those cases is it's almost like you're hearing one abuse log after another. Oh, my mother was this, oh, my father was that, oh, this happened and that. And there's not much hope. So a good meeting, you know, will have ideally a balance of people who are new, and then who are more seasoned, who've got a bit of recovery under their belt. So it just balances out
just
the whole.
To jump in there, because you used a bit of 12-step speak there, just to explain that to the boys and girls at home. So what I think you're referring to there, tell me if I'm wrong, is ESH.
I don't know. Go on.
So at 12-step meetings, what people are encouraged to share about is what they call ESH, which is experience, strength, and hope.
Yes.
Okay,
that sounds about right.
So you don't want to hear a story of, you know, my life was shit.
Pure doom and gloom.
And then I came to CoDA and it got worse.
Yeah, exactly. Put you on.
What you want to hear is, you want to hear the experience. It's like, oh, this is how bad it was.
Yes.
And then this is what I did.
Yeah.
And now it's much better. I'm feeling hopeful and I'm sharing that hope with you.
Yes.
So I think that's what you're kind of referring to, isn't it?
Exactly, yes.
If you just get the experience and you don't get the strength and hope, you come away feeling like you want to shoot yourself.
Yeah, and
whereas
imagine,
Whereas a good meeting, you come away feeling great.
Yes.
You know, feeling full of hope. I'm like, well, they did it, I can do it.
Yes, exactly. Encouraged.
Why is it called Codependents Anonymous?
Well, because this comes from, again, this is my understanding. My understanding is probably flawed in some ways. It's born out of my own experiences over the years as a clinician, as a person who has obviously gone through their own process. And you guys, you might not know this, but if you're a qualified psychotherapist, you have to go through your own personal therapy. That's one of the wonderful hallmarks of the profession and differentiates it from, for example, psychology. So some psychologists, you might meet the rare psychologist who has actually undergone their own personal therapy, but most have not. And so you get a clinician at the end of that process, which, who's so entirely different from someone who's actually gone through the trenches and then knows what it feels like to sit on the other side of the consulting room. So that's one of the huge benefits of seeing a psychotherapist versus a psychologist. Not everyone knows that.
Come from a place of empathy and compassion.
Exactly.
Not from a place of, I've got superior knowledge to my patient and I'm going to sort them out and put them right.
I'm the expert, you're the one who doesn't know, and I'll teach you, kind of thing. It's a completely different thing. But there's a massive tangent, massive side note. But yeah,
we do tangents on this channel.
We do.
Yes, tangents are good.
So codependency is, again, I'm gonna just give you, I'm not necessarily Oxford Dictionary definition, but what I would give as a definition is something around, when you have a relationship that instead of being based on a sense of being enough, each individual in that relationship being enough, it's more like, I'm not really enough and I need you to become the full person that I could be, the full expression of myself. So, you have the best example really perhaps is with alcoholic families. So quite often in an alcoholic's family, you'll have the person who's struggling with the addiction of alcoholism. And then you'll have the spouse, let's say, who, over the years, kind of, Markie, this is your field really, so please correct me if you hear anything that doesn't sound quite right. But my experience of working with patients in this group is that over the years, for example, the spouse will, adapt her. Let's say it's a she and a he. Doesn't have to be, of course, but in this scenario, she's adapted her behaviour so that he comes home from work and she can tell by the look on his face whether he's had a bad day or a good day, so therefore she'll know what to say and what not to say. So she stopped actually knowing who the hell she is, and it's all about what do I do to kind of keep the peace. This is one kind of semi-extreme example.
That's where it came from, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's why it's called codependence, because originally the dependent was the person that was using the addictive substance, and the codependent was the partner that was in an addictive pattern, but not using the substance.
Right.
And then it changed to mean something different, so they realised that these patterns occur in relationships where there isn't any substance involved.
Right.
So it just becomes a pattern, really. And one way of looking at it is it's like it's becoming using a relationship in a kind of an addictive way.
Yeah, exactly. And each person is like, there's a sort of this kind of toxic need rather than it being interdependent. Kind of mutually respectful, honouring each individual and their own lives and their own interests. It's very much more based on fear and lack and scarcity and just a sense of never being quite sure what's going on or whether you can trust in the whole entity of the relationship, basically. So it's entirely devoid. People say love in these relationships, but really I would say it's completely
You're my fix.
Yeah, exactly. That would be a better way of describing it, really. So so hopefully that gives people a sense of what we're talking about when we talk about codependency. So let's get on to the, this why I often will say to my clients who come to me struggling with RJ, why I feel it's so useful if you can find a solid relationship. Yeah, that too, but a solid
most of them have
meeting.
a solid relationship.
Yeah, of
but
course.
It's threatened by the RJ. The RJ
absolutely.
is something that threatens the solidity.
Yeah,
but otherwise
exactly.
It's a good relationship.
Yeah, quite often that is absolutely the case. Not always, of course. Sometimes there really is codependency already, quite well rooted in the relationship, but that's a separate issue, really. I think let's get on to why we feel, CoDA can be a really good fit for people
I think that's a
struggling
good
with
point.
RJ.
I would say, let me kind of qualify that then. I would say a valued relationship.
Yeah,
People
absolutely.
don't tend to get RJ if the relationship isn't
Oh
valued.
yeah, absolutely.
But of
no,
course, in
for
codependency,
sure.
the relationship is overvalued. So yes, codependency and RJ would, could happily
Yes,
coexist.
and they
Yeah.
do, sadly.
Yeah.
And perhaps quite often, to be honest. And I think, this is why I feel it's an important point, really, to mention. And just to, again, it's about, use all the resources you can, why not? So, okay, so why? I mean, just off camera, as it were, before we started doing this video, Mark and I were just thinking about, what is the why, really? And for me, I would say, keeping in mind I'm a psychodynamic / psychoanalytic psychotherapist, so I'll let you Google those terms if you don't already know.
Or watch my video series.
Or watch the video.
On Markie Demystified Psychotherapy.
Yes, so good one, Markie. Good plug.
Thank you for the plug. Yeah.
But the point is, the reason why I say that, of course, is just to say that I come at this from a certain perspective and I own my bias, etc. Okay, so you don't have to agree with anything I say, of course, but this is just my take on it. But what I find is that with RJ, sometimes when we've talked about a kind of overvalued, as it were, relationship, and perhaps what I see more commonly with RJ is undervaluing relationships, actually. And maybe this is a bit controversial, don't know what you guys will think of this, but for me, what I sometimes see is that rather there's a lot of weight and importance given to the primary intimate relationship, which is, usually I would say the thing that brings the person into therapy, which is of course understandable, and it's the pain point. It's the bit. It's like, I want to resolve this. I don't want to lose my treasured relationship. So that's what brings people in sometimes. However, what I sometimes also find is that the focus is, yes, very squarely on that intimate relationship, and not so much taking into account the importance of the other relationships in the person's life. And I suppose when I say this, I'm the kind of back story in my mind is that actually all of our relationships, to some degree, and again, this is something you may not believe or hold to, but I feel that they are often mirrors for us. So they hold something up for us. So if you have a relationship with your spouse or your partner, or your boyfriend, your lover, whatever, that's full of trust and full of goodness and a sense of safety, and you kind of know where you stand, then probably, you're okay with you as well. It's going to be likely that you've got a good relationship with yourself. Whereas when you find the opposite qualities in a relationship, where there's mistrust, where the other one or both parties are having affairs, or one is addicted to something, so they're not really present, I would argue that not always perhaps, but quite often, this is mirroring something back to us, so we can learn from that. And I think this is important because one of the things that I find working with people struggling with RJ as well is that there isn't sufficient, let's say, or enough understanding that even the relationship with the clinician, the mentor, or your therapist is also important, and is also a kind of training ground, if you will, or a stage, if you're looking at life in a more philosophical way, for all your other relationships. So if you come to therapy once, twice, and you think, this is nonsense, I'm not going to bother, and you don't even bother to have the courtesy to email the clinician or the person working with you to say, look, I'm sorry, I don't feel this is working out, and give the other person the opportunity to have a discussion with you about that, then what is that really saying about how you value relationships? Because there aren't any accidents, and again, this is arguably a psychodynamic perspective. There are no accidents, there are no coincidences in this life. So, I think, in that fixation with the pain point, with the relationship that maybe feels as though it's breaking down, sometimes what is lost is an understanding that actually, your relationship with your family is kind of worthy of exploration. The relationship with your therapist is worthy of your time, your respect and attention, and an understanding that you will learn something from it if you attend to it with a sense of respect, and just as you would honor any, valued friendship, for example. Not that it is a friendship, of course, it's a very, 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 very different relationship to a friendship, but in the sense of giving it the weight that it deserves. So yeah, I don't know, Markie. I'm yapping
That's
on here.
really it's really interesting, and I'm kind of really thinking about what you're saying.
Right.
Now what we need to do is take a pause because we can only upload videos of a certain length.
Yeah.
I want to get right back into it.
Okay.
So we'll meet you in part 2.